The massive crystalline doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hum. James Walker led the small human delegation inside, his polished black shoes clicking against the iridescent floor. This was humanity's first official visit to the Council headquarters, and the weight of representing Earth pressed heavily on his shoulders. The chamber rose in elegant tiers, filled with representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations. Their varied forms, some gaseous, others crystalline, and many humanoid, created a living rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center stood the raised platform where the High Council members sat, their ancient faces showing varying degrees of interest and disdain. "Welcome, humans of Earth," announced High Counselor Marcus, his translucent skin pulsing with blue light. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel, qualifying you for preliminary membership consideration." Walker bowed slightly, just as they had practiced. "We thank the Council for this honor." The security inspection was standard procedure for all new species. Walker and his team placed their diplomatic bags on the scanning platform. A tall, silver-skinned security officer named Drell began the inspection. The moment Drell found the ceremonial sidearm in Walker's diplomatic bag, his upper appendages twitched in what seemed like amusement. "What is this primitive device?" "A standard-issue M9 handgun," Walker explained calmly. "It's part of our diplomatic security protocol." The chamber erupted in what could only be described as alien laughter. Even the High Counselors struggled to maintain their composure. "You mean to tell us," Drell held up the pistol with 3 of his fingers, as if it might contaminate him, "that your species still uses chemical propellant to launch metal projectiles?" Walker maintained his diplomatic smile. "Yes, we find it effective for our needs." High Counselor Marcus leaned forward, his skin now pulsing with yellow amusement. "Surely you jest. Even the youngest spacefaring races have developed basic plasma weapons." Another council member, a being composed entirely of shifting geometric patterns, joined in. "Their ships use fusion drives, yet their personal weapons predate their industrial age." "How fascinating." Walker's second-in-command, Maria Torres, stepped forward. Her hand instinctively moved toward the empty holster at her hip, then stopped. "Our weapons may seem simple to you, but they have served us well." "Serve you well." Drell activated a holographic display, showing the specs of the M9. This primitive mechanism uses an explosive chemical reaction to propel a small metal projectile. The energy output is minimal. Any basic personal shield would render it harmless. The human delegation exchanged knowing looks. They had expected this reaction, had been briefed about the Council's technological arrogance. What the Council didn't understand was that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. High Counselor Marcus raised his hand for silence. "While we appreciate Earth's commitment to its traditions, you must understand that membership in the Galactic Council requires certain technological standards. Your weapons technology must be upgraded." "With all due respect," Walker said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "we would prefer to maintain our current defense systems alongside any new technologies we might adopt." This caused another ripple of amusement through the chamber. A reptilian counselor actually had to excuse herself, her scales changing color with mirth. "You can't be serious," Drell said, still holding the pistol awkwardly. "Your species faces threats you cannot imagine. Energy weapons capable of demolishing cities, shields that can deflect solar flares, beams that can phase through solid matter. And you wish to face them with projectiles." Walker stepped forward, his voice firm but respectful. "We understand there's much we can learn from the Council. However, we believe our current weapons technology has unique advantages that you might not have considered." The Council members exchanged glances, their amusement now tinged with curiosity. High Counselor Marcus's skin shifted to a thoughtful green. "Very well," Marcus said finally. "We will schedule a formal assessment of Earth's military capabilities. Though I must warn you, if your defenses prove inadequate, the Council will require immediate technological upgrades for your own protection." As the human delegation was escorted out, Walker could still hear the muffled laughter from the chamber. He smiled slightly, remembering an old Earth saying, "He who laughs last, laughs best." Little did the Galactic Council know, they were about to learn a lesson about underestimating humanity's primitive weapons. Sometimes, the old ways were the best ways, and the Council was about to find out why. 2 weeks after the diplomatic meeting, 3 massive Council ships entered Earth's orbit. Their sleek designs gleamed in the sunlight, a display of advanced technology meant to impress, or perhaps intimidate, the humans below. The observation team landed at a military testing facility in Nevada, where Admiral Thomas Reed waited with a welcoming committee. The aliens' environmental suits hummed softly as they stepped onto Earth soil for the first time. "Welcome to Earth," Reed said, standing tall in his decorated uniform. "I trust your journey was comfortable." Lead observer Drell, the same silver-skinned official from the council chambers, emerged first. His suit's sensors whirred as they analyzed the environment. "Your atmosphere is quite primitive. So much oxygen, so unrefined." Reed's smile didn't waver. "We like it just fine." The testing grounds stretched for miles across the desert. Targets had been set up at various distances, and a selection of Earth's military hardware was on display. Everything from standard rifles to heavy artillery. "These are your weapons?" asked second observer Kira, her crystalline form reflecting the harsh desert sun. "They look like museum pieces from pre-spaceflight civilizations. We find them reliable," Reed replied. "Would you like a demonstration?" The observers gathered behind a reinforced bunker. A Marine sergeant stepped up to the firing line with a standard-issue rifle. On command, he fired a 3-round burst at a target 300 meters away. The shots grouped tightly in the center. Drell's appendages waved dismissively. "Primitive projectile accuracy. Any basic shield can stop such attacks." "Perhaps a demonstration of your shields would help us understand," Reed suggested. The observers set up their personal shield generators around a target. The barrier shimmed into existence, a translucent wall of pure energy. They stepped back, clearly proud of their technology. The same Marine fired again. The bullet struck the shield and dropped harmlessly to the ground. "You see," Drell's voice carried a note of superiority. "Your weapons are useless against even our most basic defenses." Reed nodded thoughtfully. "Let's try something a bit heavier then." He gave a signal, and a Browning M2 heavy machine gun was brought forward. The observers watched with mild curiosity as it was set up. "More primitive projectiles?" Third observer Vox asked, their gaseous forms swirling with what seemed like amusement. "The size matters not against energy shields." The M2 opened fire. The first few rounds splashed against the shield, but then something unexpected happened. The sheer kinetic force began to overwhelm the shield's energy matrix. Cracks appeared in the barrier, spreading like spider webs. "Impossible." Drell's appendages twisted in agitation. "These are just metal projectiles." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "Physics is physics, regardless of technology level. Your shields are designed to dissipate energy weapons, but kinetic force, that's a different story." The observers huddled together, discussing in their native languages. Their confidence had clearly been shaken, but they weren't ready to admit defeat. "This is merely a basic civilian shield," Kira announced. "Our military-grade defenses are far superior." "Then you won't mind if we continue the demonstrations?" Reed asked. "We have quite a few more weapons to show you." The observers agreed, though with notably less enthusiasm than before. As they watched the humans set up the next demonstration, their body language showed growing concern. "Your council mentioned threats we couldn't imagine," Reed said conversationally. "Energy weapons, phase-shifting beings, solar flare shields. Very impressive. But sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." "Your weapons are still primitive," Drell insisted, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Maybe," Reed agreed, "but primitive doesn't mean ineffective. You're about to learn why humanity never abandoned kinetic weapons, even after developing energy-based ones. As the sun began to set over the desert, casting long shadows across the testing ground, the observers watched with growing unease as larger weapons were brought forward. Their reports back to the council that evening were far less dismissive than their initial assessment. The real demonstrations hadn't even begun yet, but already the observers were learning a valuable lesson. Underestimating humanity's primitive technology might be the last mistake their civilization ever made. The High Council chamber buzzed with tension as the observation team presented their preliminary findings. The once amused faces of the council members had grown serious as they reviewed the weapons test data. High Counselor Marcus's skin had shifted to a deep purple of concern. These results are troubling. The humans' kinetic weapons showed unexpected effectiveness against our defensive systems. We cannot allow this to continue, announced Counselor Vex, her crystalline form pulsing with red light. Their technology is dangerous precisely because of its simplicity. They must be forced to upgrade. The human delegation stood silently at the center of the chamber. Admiral Reed and James Walker exchanged subtle glances as the council debated their fate. "Hear me, humans," Marcus's voice boomed through the chamber. "The council has decided. You will surrender your kinetic weapon designs and adopt our approved energy-based defense systems. This is non-negotiable." Reed stepped forward, his weathered face calm. "And if we refuse?" The chamber grew deathly quiet. Even the gaseous council members seemed to still their constant motion. "Refuse?" Drell's silver skin rippled with disbelief. "You don't understand. This isn't a request. The council has spoken. Your primitive weapons are a threat to galactic stability." Walker moved to stand beside Reed. "With respect, we have a counter-proposal. You dare to counter the council's decree." Vex's crystal structure chimed with indignation. "We propose a full demonstration," Walker continued, unfazed. "Not just small arms, but the full extent of Earth's military capabilities. After all, how can you judge what you haven't fully seen?" The council members murmured among themselves. Some argued for immediate action, others counseled caution. "And what would this demonstration prove?" Marcus asked, his skin shifting between purple and green. Reed pulled out a small holographic projector, one of the few pieces of advanced technology the humans had adopted. It displayed a series of weapons systems that made several council members lean forward in their seats. "You've seen our basic firearms," Reed explained. "Now let us show you our heavy weapons, our orbital capabilities, our real military strength. If after that you still believe our technology is primitive and ineffective, we'll consider your demands." "Consider." Drell's appendages twisted in agitation. "You are in no position to negotiate." "Aren't we?" Walker's voice carried a hint of steel. "Your own tests showed our primitive weapons can breach your shields. Do you really want to push this issue without seeing everything we can do?" The chamber erupted in heated debate. Some council members demanded immediate sanctions against Earth, while others urged careful consideration. Finally, Marcus raised his hand for silence. His skin had settled into a thoughtful blue hue. "The council will allow this demonstration, but with conditions. It must be conducted on an uninhabited moon in a neutral system. And if your weapons prove insufficient, you will submit to immediate technological reformation." "Agreed." Reed nodded. "But we have a condition of our own. If our demonstration proves convincing, Earth maintains the right to keep its current weapon systems alongside any new technologies we might adopt." The council chamber filled with shocked whispers. No species had ever dared to make demands of the council before. "You would dare to dictate terms?" Vex chimed angrily. "We dare to protect our interests," Walker replied calmly. "Isn't that what any responsible species would do?" Marcus studied the humans for a long moment, his skin cycling through various colors before settling on a deep blue. "Very well. You have 3 Earth days to prepare your demonstration. Choose wisely what you show us. The Council's patience is not unlimited." As the human delegation left the chamber, Reed turned to Walker. "They still think they're doing us a favor." Walker smiled slightly. "They're about to learn that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Prepare the demonstration packages, all of them." The council watched them leave, their confidence somewhat shaken by the humans' unwavering stance. They had expected submission, not defiance. In 3 days, they would learn exactly why humans had kept their primitive weapons, and the lesson would change the galaxy forever. The barren moon hung silently in space, its gray surface scarred by countless craters. 3 Earth ships maintained position alongside the much larger council vessels, their relative size difference making them look like minnows next to whales. On the surface, Admiral Reed stood with the council observation team inside a pressurized dome. Through its transparent walls, they could see the testing range stretching across the lunar landscape. Various targets had been set up, from simple metal plates to the Council's most advanced shield systems. "Your primitive vessels barely managed the journey here," Drell noted, his silver skin reflecting the harsh starlight. "Perhaps this demonstration is unnecessary. The Council's judgment is clear." Reed smiled. "Let's begin with something simple, shall we?" A lone human figure in a spacesuit walked onto the range, carrying what looked like an ordinary rifle. The council observers practically radiated dismissal. "This again." Kira's crystalline form chimed with amusement. "We've already seen your projectile weapons fail." "Watch closely," Reed said into his comm. "Fire when ready." The rifle cracked, the sound carrying through the dome's atmosphere. The bullet struck the first target, a basic council shield. To everyone's surprise, it passed straight through, leaving a clean hole. "Impossible." Vox's gaseous form swirled in agitation. "That was a military-grade shield." Reed held up a single bullet. Depleted uranium core with a tungsten carbide jacket, designed specifically to penetrate energy shields. "You see, we've been studying your technology since first contact." Before the observers could respond, Reed gave another signal. The larger weapon was wheeled into position, a railgun prototype. "Now let's try something with a bit more punch." The railgun hummed to life. When it fired, there was no flash, no smoke, just a hypersonic projectile that tore through every shield in its path like they weren't even there. The observers watched in stunned silence as their most advanced defensive systems failed one after another. "How?" Drell's appendages twisted in confusion. "Our shields can stop plasma bolts, laser beams, even particle weapons." "That's exactly the problem," Reed explained. "Your defenses are designed to absorb and dissipate energy. But kinetic force, that's something else entirely. Newton's laws don't care about your energy shields." The demonstration continued. Each weapon showed more devastating effects than the last. Magnetic accelerators, coil guns, even simple chemical explosives proved remarkably effective against Council technology. "Enough," Kira chimed in distress. "We understand your point about personal weapons, but surely you can't defend against orbital bombardment with such primitive technology." Reed's smile widened. "I was hoping you'd ask about that." He touched his comm unit. "Orbital team, you're up." Far above the moon's surface, one of the Earth ships released a single projectile. It was nothing more than a tungsten rod, but as it fell through the vacuum of space, accelerated by the moon's gravity, it became something far more devastating. The impact was spectacular, even through the dome's filtered windows. The flash was nearly blinding. When the dust settled, a crater half a kilometer wide had replaced one of the testing areas. "That," Reed said quietly, "was just one rod. We have thousands." The observers huddled together, their earlier arrogance completely gone. Their instruments had recorded everything. The velocities, the impact forces, the complete failure of their defensive systems. "Your weapons," Drell finally said, his silver skin now a dull gray. "They're so simple, so basic, yet they work." Reed finished for him. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution." Humanity learned that lesson long ago. Through the dome's windows, they could see more weapons being set up. The real demonstration was just beginning, but already the observers knew their report to the council would be very different from what they had expected. "There's more to see," Reed announced, watching their reactions carefully. "Much more. Shall we continue?" The observers nodded silently, their earlier condescension replaced by a growing respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. They were beginning to understand that humanity's primitive weapons weren't primitive at all. They were elegant in their simplicity and devastating in their effectiveness. The lesson was only beginning, but already the galaxy's balance of power had shifted in ways no one had anticipated. Inside the observation dome, the council members watched with growing unease as Reed prepared the next phase of demonstrations. Holographic displays showed the physics behind each weapon system, making it impossible to deny the simple yet devastating science at work. "Let's talk about physics," Reed said, pulling up a diagram. "Your energy weapons and shields operate on complex principles of plasma containment and energy dispersion. But kinetic weapons? They rely on one simple formula: force equals mass times acceleration." Drell's appendages twitched nervously. "We understand basic physics, Admiral." "Do you?" Reed gestured to the lunar surface where crews were setting up the next demonstration. "Then you understand why a 1-kilogram tungsten rod traveling at 15 kilometers per second can't be stopped by an energy shield." The observers watched as a massive coil gun was positioned. Unlike their elegant energy weapons, this was a brutally simple device. Just magnetic coils wrapped around a barrel the size of a small car. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The coil gun released its projectile with no flash or sound in the vacuum of space. The target, a council battle tank protected by their most advanced shields, simply ceased to exist. Where it had been, there was now only a deep crater in the lunar surface. "Impossible," Kira chimed, her crystalline form vibrating with distress. "The energy readings are minimal," Reed finished, "because it's not about energy. It's about momentum. Your shields are designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons, but they can't stop pure kinetic force any more than they could stop a planet from falling into a sun." The next demonstration involved a cluster of small satellites. Each one carried nothing more than shaped tungsten rods and simple targeting systems. "Observe," Reed commanded. The satellites released their payloads. As they fell toward the moon's surface, gravity did the work. The rods struck their targets at 11 kilometers per second. Council shield generators, armor plates, and defensive bunkers vanished in explosions of lunar dust. "No power sources to detect," Reed explained. "No energy signatures to track. Just simple physics." Vox's gaseous form had condensed considerably. "Your species, you've weaponized gravity itself." "We weaponized math," Reed corrected. "The same math that governs how planets move and stars burn. The universe's most fundamental laws." The observers huddled over their instruments, recording everything. Their earlier dismissal of human technology had been replaced by something approaching fear. "But the cost," Drell protested weakly. "The resources needed to lift such weapons into orbit." Reed laughed. "Compared to the energy requirements of your plasma weapons, it's negligible. We don't need exotic materials or antimatter containment. Just tungsten, steel, and gravity." The final demonstration of the day involved a simple metal sphere the size of a tennis ball. It hung suspended in a magnetic field, spinning rapidly. "This," Reed said softly, "is what happens when you combine simple kinetic principles with just a touch of advanced technology." The sphere was launched. As it flew, its spin interacted with magnetic fields, accelerating it to unimaginable speeds. When it struck the final target, a bunker protected by every defense system the Council possessed, the resulting explosion lit up half the lunar surface. "That," Reed said into the stunned silence, "was a kinetic kill vehicle enhanced with basic magnetic acceleration. Imagine what we could do if we actually decided to advance this technology." The observers stood in silence, their instruments recording the aftermath. Everything they had believed about human warfare had been proven wrong in the most dramatic way possible. "Your species," Kara finally chimed, her crystalline form dim with shock. "You haven't remained primitive at all, have you? You've refined simplicity into an art form." Reed nodded. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. We just made them better." As they prepared to return to their ships, the observers knew their report to the Council would change everything. Humanity hadn't failed to advance. They had taken the most basic principles of physics and turned them into weapons more devastating than anything the Council had imagined. The galaxy would never look at primitive human weapons the same way again. The Galactic Council chamber was absolutely silent as the observation team's final report played on the massive holographic display. The footage from the lunar demonstrations left no room for argument. Humanity's primitive weapons had proven devastatingly effective. High Counselor Marcus's skin had turned an ashen gray as he watched a replay of the kinetic orbital strike. "These weapons, they bypass every defense we've developed over 10,000 years." "Not just bypass," Drell reported, his silver skin still dulled from the shock of what he'd witnessed. "They render them completely irrelevant. Our shields might as well be soap bubbles against their kinetic kill vehicles." The human delegation stood calmly at the center of the chamber. Admiral Reed and James Walker watched as the council members grappled with their new reality. "Let me understand this clearly," Counselor Vex chimed, her crystalline form dim with worry. "A single human kinetic strike weapon, costing less than a standard plasma rifle to produce, can destroy our most advanced battleship. Physics doesn't care about technological advancement," Reed explained. "A rock thrown hard enough will crack any window, no matter how advanced the glass." The display showed the final demonstration, the magnetic-enhanced kinetic projectile that had vaporized a hardened bunker. Several council members visibly recoiled at the footage. "But this is barbaric." A gaseous council member swirled in agitation. "Such weapons could destroy entire cities." "Just like your plasma cannons," Walker pointed out. "The difference is, our weapons can't be stopped by simply upgrading your shields." The council chamber erupted in heated discussion. Some members called for immediate action against Earth, while others argued for a complete reassessment of council defense doctrine. "Silence," Marcus commanded, his skin cycling through various colors before settling on a deep blue. "We must address the grave implications of this demonstration. Humanity's weapons are not primitive, they are devastatingly elegant in their simplicity." Reed stepped forward. "We didn't develop these weapons to threaten the Council. We developed them because they work. No power requirements, no exotic materials, no complex maintenance. Just simple, reliable physics." The holographic display shifted to show the mathematical principles behind human weapons. The equations were basic: velocity, mass, acceleration. Nothing more complex than what any spacefaring race would learn in their earliest physics classes. "The most frightening aspect," Drell reported, "is how easily these weapons could be improved. The humans have barely begun to apply advanced technology to their kinetic weapon designs. What we witnessed was their basic arsenal." This statement sent another wave of unease through the chamber. The implications were clear. If humanity's primitive weapons were this effective, what could they do with real technological advancement? "There's an old human saying," Walker offered into the tense silence. "Don't fix what isn't broken. Our weapons might seem simple to you, but they are far from primitive. They are refined, tested, and proven." The council members watched another replay of the orbital bombardment test. The simple tungsten rod, accelerated by nothing more than gravity, had hit with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. "We must reconsider our position," Marcus finally declared, his skin settling into a thoughtful purple. "Humanity's approach to warfare is unconventional, but undeniably effective." "Perhaps," Vex suggested, her crystalline form brightening slightly, "we have something to learn from Earth's military doctrine." The elegance of simplicity. Reed nodded. We're not opposed to adopting new technologies, but we won't abandon what works. Every human weapon you saw today was built on principles as old as the universe itself. The council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. They had dismissed human weapons as primitive, only to discover that their very simplicity made them unstoppable. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted dramatically in a single day. Marcus's skin shifted to formal green. The council must deliberate on this matter. But one thing is clear: we gravely underestimated humanity's military capabilities. As the human delegation left the chamber, the council's earlier arrogance had been replaced by something new: respect, tinged with a healthy dose of fear. They had learned a valuable lesson about judging weapons by their complexity rather than their effectiveness. The age of energy weapons supremacy had ended. The era of kinetic warfare had begun. 1 month after the lunar demonstrations, the Galactic Council reconvened to formalize their new relationship with Earth. The chamber that had once echoed with laughter at human weapons now hummed with respectful attention. High Counselor Marcus stood at the central podium, his skin glowing with formal blue light. After extensive deliberation, the Council has reached its decision regarding Earth's military status. Admiral Reed and James Walker stood with their delegation, noting how differently the other species now regarded them. Gone were the condescending looks and dismissive gestures. Humanity has proven that technological advancement does not always mean complexity, Marcus continued. Their weapons, which we foolishly dismissed as primitive, have revealed a fundamental oversight in our defensive doctrine. Drell, now serving as Earth's liaison to the Council, moved his silver appendages in agreement. The humans have taught us a valuable lesson. Simple does not mean ineffective. Basic physics, properly applied, can overcome our most advanced defenses. The chamber's holographic displays showed the new military protocols being implemented across Council space. Many species had already begun incorporating kinetic weapon concepts into their defensive strategies. Therefore, Marcus announced, Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges thereof. Furthermore, we formally recognize their military doctrine as a valid and advanced approach to warfare. Walker stepped forward. Earth accepts this recognition and looks forward to sharing our defensive knowledge with our new allies. Sharing. A crystalline council member chimed in surprise. You would teach us your weapons technology. Reed smiled. The principles are already yours to study. They're written into the laws of physics. We can help you understand how to apply them effectively. The council chambers buzzed with excitement. Several military attaches were already taking notes as Reed explained the basics of kinetic weapon design. But remember, Walker added, these weapons require a different mindset. You can't rely on energy shields or electromagnetic defenses. You need to think in terms of mass, velocity, and physical impact. Marcus's skin shifted to a thoughtful green. Perhaps this is why your species developed such effective weapons. You never abandoned the basic principles in favor of more complex solutions. Sometimes, Reed said, the simplest solution is the best solution. A bullet doesn't care about your shield's energy capacity. A kinetic rod doesn't need to penetrate your defensive screen. It simply carries too much momentum to be stopped. The Council had already begun implementing changes. New defense stations incorporated physical armor alongside energy shields. Ship designs were being modified to include kinetic weapon systems. There will be changes throughout the galaxy, Marcus announced. All member species are encouraged to study Earth's military doctrine. We must adapt to this new paradigm of warfare. And Earth? Asked a gaseous council member. Will you now adopt our energy weapons? Walker nodded. We'll study and incorporate useful technologies, but we won't abandon what works. Kinetic weapons will remain our primary defense. The chamber's mood had transformed completely from that first meeting, where once there had been mockery of human primitives, now there was respect for their practical ingenuity. Let this be a lesson to us all, Marcus declared, his skin glowing with formal white light. Progress does not always mean complexity. Sometimes, the oldest principles are the most effective. As the session concluded, many council members approached the human delegation, eager to discuss military cooperation and weapons development. The species that had once laughed at human guns now wanted to learn everything about them. "You've changed the galaxy," Drell told Reed privately. "No one will ever underestimate humanity again." Reed watched as council military officials examined diagrams of basic human weapons designs. "We never wanted to prove our superiority," he said. "We just wanted respect for our choices." "Respect you've earned," Marcus added, joining them. "Your primitive weapons have ushered in a new age of galactic warfare, one based on physical principles so basic we had forgotten their power." As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, they knew the galaxy would never be the same. Their simple weapons had not only earned humanity a place among the stars, they had revolutionized how advanced civilizations thought about warfare. Sometimes, the oldest solutions were the best solutions. The Council had learned this lesson well.